While everyone was sleeping, thinking they knew who was going to win the Miami GP, the pit lanes of 3 different teams decided the championship on their own. Because it wasn't the fastest car that won this race, it was the team that made the fewest mistakes. And when you understand that, it completely changes how you see what happened that Sunday in Florida. Let's talk about McLaren, Bortoleto, and Red Bull. 3 completely different stories coming out of the same weekend. Start with McLaren, which was the team that had the most reason to be angry after Miami. Andrea Stella, team principal, opened up without mincing words. Mercedes still has a real advantage of around 0.2 of a second per lap in race pace. Sounds small, right? But in 2025 Formula 1, 0.2 is a canyon. What stayed hidden during the sprint is that Mercedes didn't optimize the car right away that weekend. So the field was left with the impression that the gap was smaller than it actually is. But in the main race, with everyone adjusted and running at the limit, reality showed up. McLaren got so close that the victory started depending on one thing only: perfect execution. No margin for error, no improvising. Every decision, every second, every millimeter was going to count. And that was exactly where the team stumbled. On lap 26, Mercedes called Kimi Antonelli into the box. An undercut attempt that, according to Stella himself, wasn't even considered that much of a threat on that circuit. Miami isn't the type of track where the undercut tends to be devastating. McLaren reacted fast, called Norris in the next lap. Up to there, everything within the script. But then the script went in the trash. Norris's pit stop took 1 second longer than expected. Just 1 second. 60 thousandths of an hour. And within that 1 second, Antonelli came out in front. Stella was surgical in his analysis. If Norris had maintained position in the pits, they could have won the race even with a slower car. Because overtaking on track in Miami, with hard tires and dirty air traffic, requires at least 0.7 of advantage per lap. Norris didn't have that. So the logic is brutal. McLaren didn't lose the victory on track, not in qualifying, not in strategy. Lost it inside the pit box, in a time frame that any human being would be unable to notice without a stopwatch. That says a lot about the level Formula 1 has reached. When 4 teams are separated by thousandths, any slip, anywhere, at any moment turns into a result. Stella's message to the factory was direct. The car is competitive to win again. But the team also needs to be flawless. Not almost flawless, flawless. Because 1 extra second in the pit stop now can be the difference between the top step of the podium and not even getting on it. And here's the question that hangs in the air. Do you agree that mistakes like this can destroy an entire race? That the victory was really handed over in the pits? Leave your opinion in the comments because this debate isn't over yet. Now the tone completely changes. Because while McLaren left frustrated with what could have been, Gabriel Bortoleto left Miami with a knot in his throat for a completely different reason. He didn't lose anything due to a team mistake in the pits. He lost before even having the chance to fight. The Brazilian's weekend at Audi was an accumulation of setbacks that reads like a nightmare script. First, disqualified in the sprint for a technical irregularity in engine pressure. Then, qualifying for the main GP ruined by operational delays. To close it out, a brake fire, still in qualifying. 3 different problems, 3 sessions compromised. And then Sunday arrived with Bortoleto starting from 22nd position, meaning last on the grid. He himself defined the weekend as sad, and made clear that the adjective has nothing to do with what he did behind the wheel. It's sad because Audi couldn't deliver a clean weekend. No drama. No putting out fires every session, both literally and figuratively. But what Bortoleto brought from the telemetry data shifts the narrative a little. The race pace of Audi reached the level of Williams. And Williams was the big surprise of Miami, putting both cars in the points zone. That's no small thing. That's a real signal that the car has evolved. The Brazilian was direct. If Audi had delivered a weekend without breakdowns, the potential was there to reach Q2 comfortably. And who knows, fight for a spot in Q3. He makes a point of marking this clearly. The mechanical failures are completely out of his control. It's not driving, it's not setup, it's reliability. And reliability is the factory's problem, not the driver's. What makes the situation even harder to swallow is that the current car is much better than 22nd place suggests. Starting from last and still wanting to score points is almost impossible at the level Formula 1 is at today. But the pace Bortoleto showed when he had space to race says the potential is there. The Brazilian's vision for the future is one of resilience. The evolution since Australia is clear. The new engine is being understood little by little by the engineers. The speech is long-term, but the message is clear. Audi needs to learn the basics before thinking about fighting the midfield. The basics here means crossing the finish line without a new technical drama every weekend. Until that happens consistently, the potential that Bortoleto sees in the car will keep being exactly that, potential, not result. And the question that remains is this: do you trust Audi for the next races? Was this weekend an isolated case, a perfect storm of problems? Or is there still real development needed in their reliability? Tell me in the comments. And to close the Miami wrap-up, let's talk about Red Bull. Because the Austrian team's story this weekend is the most complex of the three. It wasn't brilliant, it wasn't disastrous, it was something in between, a clear signal of evolution held back by mistakes that couldn't happen. The upgrade package Red Bull put on the car works. That was confirmed in Miami. But the team hasn't reached the level of Mercedes and McLaren yet. You can't pretend they have. Max Verstappen was the clearest example of that contradiction. On the first lap, he spun on his own, a 360-degree spin that threw him to the back of the grid. The most complicated situation a driver can face at the start of a race. And even so, he finished fifth after the investigations. The recovery pace was impressive. Verstappen admitted the car has gained performance and that the development direction is correct. His only complaint was with the hard tires at the end, where grip faded. But coming out of a spin at the start and finishing fifth already says a lot about where Red Bull is right now. The problem was the other side of the garage. Liam Lawson had already started the weekend in a hole, with a grid penalty for an infringement. On Sunday, he hit the wall and retired. He himself left irritated because he felt the car's pace was good enough to score points. A driving mistake that cost dearly and left Red Bull with only one car crossing the finish line. Laurent Mekies, team principal, kept a balanced tone. The qualifying pace from Saturday and Verstappen's recovery speed prove the direction is right. The focus now is consistency and driver reliability, so the Miami mistakes don't repeat themselves on the European leg of the championship. What Red Bull takes from Miami is this: the car is waking up. It's not at the leader's level yet, but the gap is closing. And when Verstappen has a competitive car in his hands, the picture changes fast. The team's fans had reason to smile in Miami. Cautiously, but they did. And I want to know what you think. Do you trust that in the next races Red Bull will keep evolving? That Verstappen will start giving headaches to Mercedes and McLaren? Tell me down there. Summing up what Miami delivered. McLaren proved that being close isn't enough when execution fails in a second you can barely count. Audi showed real pace, but keeps drowning in technical problems that Bortoleto can't fix on his own. And Red Bull gave the most encouraging sign of the last few months, even with Verstappen literally doing a full spin before climbing 5 positions. Formula 1 in 2025 has no margin for anything. Not for a 1-second mistake, not for a brake that catches fire, not for a spin on the first corner. Everything pays, everything charges, and that was exactly what Miami taught. If you want to stay on top of everything that happens in Formula 1, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell because there's a video every day right here.